Hey there, and a good Tuesday morning to you. We're getting ready to do our next video. This one is one of my favorites from my last trip to Europe in 2019, right before everything went crazy. My wife and I, for our anniversary, went on a Mediterranean cruise and spent about a week in Venice. This painting is one I did when I got home based on one of my photographs. And I think it'll work out really well for us for this class. I know the last few weeks I've been pushing you as far as the drawings. The shapes have been more complex than you've been used to from me. I have seen some of the work you guys produce, sending me emails, and I gotta say I'm really impressed with what you've done. I'm really proud of you for continuing to keep going in my absence, and this has worked out okay. This particular painting has simpler shapes and relies on the play of warm colors and cool colors in the shadow as complements, and simple shapes to tell a nice story, and it's a classic Venice scene. So let me show you. And here we are. This is the painting that I did. As you can see, it is pretty straightforward. The main shapes are this building, the bridge itself, the building behind, and the shadow, and then the shadow from the shutters. It looks more complicated in some ways than the simple structures are, but it's really not that bad. And our classes so far, we've been able to break down basically to 3 videos, and I'm going to continue with that. This is another one that should fit nicely into 3 videos. We're going to do the whole painting in this warm yellow of this building, because it's also this building. The only areas that we would have to protect would be this top rail of the bridge and this concrete stonework from the bridge. Now we could leave that white and paint around it, which I probably will do. But if it doesn't work out, we can always go in with white gouache and that'll work just fine. And we'll tint it. The colors are really straightforward in this one. We've got some of that primrose yellow and then a warmer earthier yellow and the orange. So that's really a tight grouping of warm colors. They're all right next to each other. And then it's kind of, the shadows have a warm kind of blue, ultramarine, and kind of purple. So those are kind of the 2 opposites of the warm colors. So they play well together, and it's nice here. You can see in this shutter that we have some of that warm going on in the shadow. It looks like the color of the wall coming through. The colors that we're using are, while they can be quite dark for the shadows, are transparent, so we can get away with painting the whole structure of that building in front of us with the window without trying to fake it. We can paint that whole wall and then paint the shadow in next. Because it's transparent, it'll actually shine right through. It's a really nice way to paint this. And so we're going to start with that warm wash all over the whole painting. I've got tissues and paper towels ready because I will blot this area around the window to make it a focus area. And that will work well with the tissues. And the reason why I don't use paper towels for that so much is that the paper towel can leave the texture of the paper towel. Which in the case of Venice, with its, if you have a regular patterned paper towel, it's fine. If you have something that's got an imprint that's something recognizable, it won't work. But the buildings in Venice are all crumbling concrete, shadows, marks. It's really nice. You can play a lot with texture here, with spatters, with white spatters and dark spatters and spatters of water and even some salt. I'm working at a bit of an angle here, but I might be able to get some salt into that wash. So why don't we get started? And this should go pretty quickly because it is an all-over wash. So I'm just going to mix up the color and then we'll get going. Trying to choose a brush here. I'm gonna go with the number 14. It's pretty big. I might go to a bigger brush, but we'll see. Just getting some water into my tray here. And I'll put all three of those warm colors down at one time in kind of separate areas. I'll let them run together, but keeping them separate. Nice and strong. We don't want them too weak on the palette because we'll run some water that'll thin them out a little bit. Grab some of that orange too, put it in the corner. All right, so here's the palette we're starting with. It's all kinds of warms, and I'm gonna wet the paper and get going. And I'm gonna paint around, if I can, the handrail on the bridge. I see there's a couple of pencil lines that I have forgotten that may show up in the painting. That is okay. I don't mind my pencil lines showing up here and there. It's okay with me. It's also okay to not cover the entirety of the paper in this one, because that will just add texture, so that's okay too. So don't be afraid to, if you get a little gap, or if you dry brush on some of the water and don't get it fully coated, that's okay. And I'm going to try and go around there. So the shadow side is wet, but that stonework from the bridge is protected. That's really all I needed to worry about protecting. The rest of this, the shadow. When we get into the shadow down here, I'm gonna leave some gaps in the water. That'll be really helpful for making those nice textures. And I'm doing the same thing with the upper part of that stonework, the handrail, whatever we're going to call that. And I'm going to go in dry here too. This is a shadow area across from the bridge, and it for the most part is cool, but it'll start out warm. And I'm scrubbing in the water, scrubbing. You could paint entirely around the window, and that would be fine, because it's going to be all in shadow. Really, that's a creative decision more than anything else. All right, let's start getting some color in here. I'm gonna go. You can see I've got some areas where I didn't coat it with water, and that's leaving a nice textured kind of statement. Okay. And the bridge is going to end up being orange anyway, so getting orange on your brush here only helps keep that a nice clean color later, if you get that base to be the right color now. If you make it just yellow and paint on top, that's fine too. We're going to cover this. Either way works just fine. I'm going to go around that stick or whatever that is. Okay, that wasn't too bad going around. I'm going to just grab this and get some texture in there. You can just dab it. Do the same thing here, but I got to keep moving. Got to keep moving with that yellow. And that yellow's Maybe a little bit too, the primrose is maybe a little bit too cool for me. So I added a little bit of orange. Just gave it some oomph. I'm gonna darken it in more orange towards the edges. There. Now I can be pretty free and loose in here because that's going to be in shadow later. But getting texture now that will shine through is helpful. Also, the stonework around the window gets a little bit of blotting. Can't forget this area. This is actually one of those situations where if you got blossoms in the stonework or in the bridge, that wouldn't be a bad thing. So going in and re-hitting it when it's starting to dry can add some interesting crackle, some texture. I wasn't planning on going dark on the bridge yet, and I'm really not. I'm just going in and getting this while I have a moment, so I can have some texture in it. And again, dab it with the tissue. This wall is going to end up being a little bit darker, so if I get a little bit of dark in there now, it'll help set things up for me. And roughing up that with dry brush is a great thing to do here. And I do want to fix this. Try and keep that bridge work dry. And last, I'm just going to paint this underside of the bridge. Now, just so that we've got something in there. Warm is good. We'll put the cool on top of that later. Okay. This front side of that building is going to be lighter than where it turns when you come off the bridge, so that can be we could do a lot more. We could play all day long with this. I did forget the salt. See if I can get some of it to stick. Probably not. No, it's already too dry. So we won't use salt in this one. And that's okay. There's plenty of other ways. When we get into darker, we can spatter. But that's really it. If you can get something like this in that first wash, so if you can get those light colors down and have them have a little texture and a little life, and really I used 3 colors. I used the primrose yellow, which is a little bit too cool, so I warmed it up with the orange, and then an earthy kind of yellow color. which was warmer and darker. And I let them go. I'm going to let this completely dry, and then we will come in and start working on the bridge and the shutters, and the third stage will be the darks and the details. So get to this point, and I'll meet up with you again on the other side.